Hi guys, Peter Grillett here, and in this video I'm going to be making a note, probably very brief, but I thought it'd be worth kind of illustrating this because I'm in a couple conversations today which are pretty much about the same point, and the question essentially being asked is, why is it important to have a niche or a niche if you're American? And this can be played out in lots of different ways, and this affects the business in lots of different ways. Thinking about the messaging, thinking about what product you make, and thinking about how much of a priority it is for the different types of people you want to talk to. But also it has an impact on just how viable the business is. And that's what I'm going to kind of illustrate here today. So what you're looking at is obviously a poorly drawn grid full of dots. And I'm going to explain what those dots are in a moment. But first of all, I want to kind of explain that think of this as whatever market you're in, whatever business you're in, this grid represents customers. So each dot, or people probably more accurately, so each dot is a person. The dots that are highlighted in blue are people who might have a need for your product or service, but it's not an urgent problem for them. They don't really have a budget allocated for it, and they can't see a clear ROI from it. The circles represented, the dots highlighted by a kind of fuchsia pink or a red, depending on your screen, represent people who are your customers, your ideal customers. So they have the willingness to pay, they have the clear problem, and they can see it's a high priority problem and they want to solve it as quickly as possible, and they can see the clear ROI in solving that problem. So they know that there's going to be a return on their investment by taking on your solution, which is very specifically going to solve that particular problem. Now, the way I want to illustrate why having a niche is so important is I want to start off by saying you're going to start off here in the top corner, and you're starting off there, and obviously you want to get to all of the different people who are your ideal customer. Now, each one of these columns, so like I've highlighted in green going down here, is what we would refer to as a niche. So there are all of these people on the board in terms of the black dots, but if you go down from top to bottom or bottom to top, those people have similar characteristics. So they might have all the same job title with a specific problem in a specific type of company, taking on a specific battle at that certain stage in the company's life cycle. So a very specific set of people. So for example, we might be looking at all football fans. So every dot on here is a football fan, but each column is a particular team. Or we might be looking at accountancy firms, and each dot represents an accountancy firm, but each column represents a different type of accountancy firm. So one specializing in tax, one specializing in management accounts, one specializing in VAT, one specializing in payroll, one specializing in bookkeeping. So they'll have different columns to represent those different types of businesses. And that becomes relevant when I highlight that you starting off in square 1A at the top left hand corner here, you have 5 tokens starting off. So hopefully you can see that 5. And I'm saying that because you will always have constraints. And of course, those constraints can be man hours, or they could be money in terms of a marketing budget, or it could be quite simply you have a number of products and services and you haven't quite worked out which are going to kind of resonate effectively, and that will make sense a little bit later on in this presentation. But if we just stick to the idea of it being either hours or money, so you know that you're wasting something, or letting go of something each time, you kind of cross between each one of these dots representing the people. So kicking off, let's say you are on dot A1 and you speak to that person, you realize they're not a customer. So you can either choose to go down and stay in that niche and keep going, knowing that you've only got 5 units left of your tokens, or you can choose to go across, or you can choose to go diagonally. Now let's say you've got 5 tokens and you do decide to stay in a niche and you go down. You go 1 and then there's no customer, 2, no customer, 3, no customer, 4, and just as you're about to run out of tokens, you hit a customer, and each customer in this particular game is worth 5 tokens. So what this means is you're now in a position to keep going. If this wasn't a customer, you would run out of tokens, so you'd run out of money or you'll run out of time and the company has to fold. But because you've landed on a customer here, you've got an extra 5 tokens. So you've gone from being on 4 tokens, which it took to get here, back up to having no longer 5. So I'll get rid of that. So I can set the eraser. You're now on 6 tokens. So that allows you to keep going. So you've got that customer, you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you hit this person who isn't an ideal customer. They burn a lot of time and they pay you a little bit of money. So you only get 2 tokens for them. So though you've burnt your tokens, so getting that eraser back again if possible. How many tokens did we burn here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we had 6 tokens, we burnt 5. So essentially we've got 1 token left when we land here, and then we get another 2 tokens. So that means we're on 3 tokens now. And of course we now, 1 more person in that niche, that means that we get an additional 5 tokens. So we're now up to 8 tokens. So our business is doing okay here. It's not perfect, but it's okay. Let's see what would happen if we pick the next niche. So instead of going down and staying in that particular niche, which was okay, it wasn't really our target market perfectly, but it wasn't wrong. But here we're going to look at what happens if we went for a niche where essentially the target market wasn't necessarily perfect, but it looked like it had some potential. So we start off again with 5 tokens. I'm going to do a little effort to clean this up. But we're still starting off with that 5 tokens. And then we're starting off on cell 1A again. So we go across this time instead of down. And then that's 1 token used, another token used. Then when we get here, we get an additional 2 tokens. So we've used 2 tokens, but then we've also got 2 tokens. So we're still at 5. So I'm going to keep that 5 there. Then what we're going to see is how long it takes to get to another customer. So this is marketing campaigns, budget being spent. This is time being spent of team members. So we've got 5 tokens and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we didn't make it to another customer. We actually ended up in a position where we spoke to people who weren't customers. And even if we did survive, we would only get another 2 tokens and we wouldn't be able to make it to the bottom of the chart. So it'd be unprofitable because we just quite frankly weren't coming across the type of customers that will sustain our business. So hopefully that illustrates, if you had a niche that was kind of on target, you kind of had done some research and kind of understood what was happening, through to you hadn't really done much research, didn't really know what the problems were with a specific niche. So you were kind of just stumbling into conversation, speaking to people, but it wasn't quite relevant. So there wasn't enough capital flowing towards your business that would keep it going, or other tokens, so whether that be hours or capital. So we're gonna get rid of this because it's obviously not the niche for us and it's not quite worked. If I can get the eraser working again. So that's been somewhat unfruitful. I'm just gonna clean this up a little bit. So what we're gonna do this time is we're again back to that 5 tokens, and this is where we've done our research, we've spoken to a few people, and we're now going to go for this niche here. And obviously when you're comparing that, I've probably let the story on here, let you know what's gonna come. But in this particular situation, we're now going to see what happens if we've done our research and we've worked out actually the niche to get to is this particular one here in column 4. So again, we're starting off with 5 tokens. Excuse that. Starting off with 5 tokens, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we hit 5 tokens. So we were down to 1 token, but of course this customer here gives us another 5 tokens, so we're now on 6. Then again, because we're in the right niche, shortly after we speak to that customer, immediately after we speak to another customer, it gives us another 5 tokens. So we're now on 11 tokens. And then we go through, so just to illustrate that, we go through that customer and we're going on to the next. So we've got 1, 2, 3. So from that 11 tokens, we spend 3, and then we end up in another customer that can give us some. So we go down to 8 here, but then we're accumulating another 5. I could have done a better job of illustrating this with the math, but hopefully you've got where I'm going here. So we're now back up to 13 on this particular column again. So my alignment's not perfect for this illustration, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. And then now we end up in a situation where shortly after getting that 13th token, we've got one more customer, so we go down 1, and then we land here, and we've now got another, so we're down to 12 tokens, but we're adding another 5. So we've now got 17. I don't know if I can squeeze that in there, but yeah, so we've got another 5 tokens there that gave us 17 when we hit here, and then we hit a customer that isn't quite right at the perfect stage, but they can see that the problem is coming, they want to give it a go, so they give us another 2 tokens. So we got 17 plus 2 tokens. So again, this could be money for marketing budget, this could be hours, whatever kind of resource you need to burn through while you're keeping business going. Obviously money being the easiest to understand here. So we've got that additional 2 tokens, we're now on 19 tokens, and then we spend some more. I should have pointed out actually it's probably here, it shouldn't be 17 tokens because you use 1 to get across, so it should probably be 16. Again, the technology is letting me down here, but I'm not going to share this too widely, so it's not a big deal. So this should be 18. Right, so then now we're on 18 tokens, we spend 1, 2, so that takes us down from 18 back to 16 again, and then we've got another 2 customers in succession, so what I'm going to do is just put a 10 here. Now, that means we're coming off the board with 26 tokens, so excuse that. And so essentially you end up in a situation where a young lady can't find a bag of sewing. So excuse those messages for a moment. But the point being, you can see now that having taken that niche, I'm going to have to turn off the network there, apologies. But the point being, you can now see that because the niche was so well defined, we got our copyright, we got all our marketing in the right channels, in the right spaces where that niche would always come across it. We were saying the right thing, so if you're in that niche, you'd understand the points we were making. You could clearly identify the issue. And so it was very easy to just cycle through that niche, keep making money. Now, if we went across into any other direction, not quite sure how these messages are getting through, put it on flight mode, which doesn't seem to cut things off, but there you go. But now you can see that that was a very profitable niche for us to go for, so we just kept stacking up resources. So this is the ideal situation, right? We've got revenue to be able to pay for new team members, more marketing. We can survive in the market for as many steps as we need because we've now got another 26 steps, so we could take the 26 steps towards this other person, or we could go in other directions, but essentially we will have tapped out the market by just staying in our particular niche. So maybe we would have to look for other products and services to kind of tap into these other dots. But the point being that by narrowing down on a niche, it becomes much easier to make the business fly because you keep stacking up points or tokens that keep you in business. If you're struggling to keep those tokens in your bank account or in man hours or whatever the resource you need is, that might suggest that you're looking at the wrong niche or you don't have a problem that fits a specific niche. This is why it's so dangerous to come up with an idea and try and fit it to a niche, because there were already customers in this niche before we got to it. And that's what these dots represent, and that's why I started off having the niche already have the customers highlighted. There were already customers there. It's just that we happened to come and have a solution that fit those particular customers, and that's why we were able to keep the business going. Whereas if we had a solution that we thought could fit any niche, we would have done that steps of going across, where we would have jumped from niche to niche to niche, and it never would have come to anything. We might have got one customer at the end here. Sorry, excuse me. See if I can get this. I can't get it working again. I don't know what's going on. Oh, because I've turned the Bluetooth off. So anyway, if you can imagine that if we were still to go through those purple dots, essentially we'd be able to show that this business is not viable, because we would have got to the end of the board on this side and we would have essentially run out of money before we got to that if we started off with the 5 points. So the aim of the game here is pick a niche, ensure that they have a problem that they're willing to kind of pay to solve that particular problem, and stay in the niche. And hopefully the terrible maths, the interruptions from Hattie, and the bizarre diagram have come together and fixed that in your mind. Let me know if you've got any questions. Cheers.